Welcome everyone to Comics from the Multiverse, episode 453. I am Peter, and joining me, as always, is Matt.
Hey, what's up?
This is the DC Comics podcast. We get together and talk about the books we read this week. Coming up on today's show, we have Absolute Batman issue 7, Action Comics 1085, Green Lantern Corps issue 3, Batman and Robin 20, Aquaman 4, and Batman Dark Patterns issue 5. So it's a little bit of a lighter week. It's actually a bit of a lighter week almost every week this month in comparison to some previous months, because I was looking ahead just before we started, and because there's a week 5 where a couple of the books have been pushed to, I don't think I have more than 7 books in any particular week this month, which is nice. It's I mean, don't get me wrong, like, what's better, having a more packed week 3 and 4 and then getting a week off, or just having a nicer, easier week every week? I don't know. It's really,
I mean, it depends if you like consistency or not, right?
Yeah.
Taking off episodes is weird.
I feel like the audience probably prefers they're been spread out so there's an episode every week. But
yeah,
I don't know. Just kind of depends, I guess.
People that hate listen, so they're just happy when there's no episode. They're like, oh, good, I don't have to listen to those guys.
I mean, if that's your attitude coming out of the show, I'm like, why are you listening? Like, yeah. I'm questioning your life choices at that point.
Yeah. People are weird though.
People are weird. Yeah. I like the idea there's like one really just like hardcore Marvel fan who listens, who just hates everything we say and just listens out of sheer spite for some reason. Like, it's not even like we sit and badmouth Marvel a lot of the time either. It's not, but just,
it's somehow, I don't know, bad mouthing would seem that we know what's going on over
That's
there.
true, we don't really pay attention.
We really don't.
There was a period when I was, like, there was a good few years when I was paying attention to Marvel back at the start of the show. But they've just not had anything that's interested me that much in the past 3 or 4 years. Oh well, it is what it is. But yes, we'll get into the show, the usual shenanigans and whatnot. Matt, how's your week been now that you're almost 40?
Not quite, buddy. I still have a couple months.
I said almost. Right? I said almost. Yeah, that was accurate.
Hold on. No, hold on. 5 months is not almost.
Yes,
right,
Matt,
talk to me about summer.
Once you're 38, you're almost 40. That's the level of scale we're working with here. Okay. I
will not bring that up to the significant other.
Why is she 38?
Oh, maybe. So, not gonna do it.
No, say it. Say 38 is almost 40, and Jake Gyllenhaal was right. Put it on a note and slap it somewhere.
I can't have my brother banned from the house. I can just have him do that.
Okay.
He'll take care of that.
Yes.
How was my week? Nothing eventful I can think of this week. I'm trying to think what I did. It kind of got all mixed together. We had some issues at work. I bought a book for the first time in a while, like not a comic book, but an actual book. Granted, it's a autobiography of one of my favorite musicians. So started that. But yeah, no, nothing comes to mind. I haven't been to the movies in a while. That's bothering me because I bought a membership and I haven't used it. And every time I try to go, something happens and I can't. So, but yeah, no. So how was your week?
I mean, I can't say it was much more riveting. I did have to go to the dentist this week, so that was a thing.
Yuck.
Yes, had a filling to deal with.
Okay.
Which was
pretty standard.
Pretty standard. It was near the back, and they did kind of hype it up as being more difficult because it was so far back. But to be honest, other than the drilling feeling a little bit worse, it kind of felt like everything else was easier because it was so far back. I don't know if it's supposed to be, or if I'm just weird and it kind of worked out that way. But either way,
did you get the gas?
No.
They hit you with the nitrous?
Not for a filling. No.
Oh, I would have required that.
No, they inject you with some what should we call it?
You keep the Novocaine away from me. All right, give me the gas.
What? I don't even know if that's an option here. No, you take the needle like a man and you like it.
Not in my mouth. I got banned from a dentist office when I was 8 or 9 for essentially swinging on the dental hygienist because she lied to me. She said they weren't going to stick any needles in my mouth, and then brought over a tray of needles to stick in my mouth. And I was not having it. So the dentist pulled my dad aside later and goes, "You can't bring him back here anymore."
Yeah, I'm going to say you were the asshole in this situation, Matt.
Oh, 100%. Also, she shouldn't have lied, though. She should have just been, "Yep, that's part of the process."
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, this time the needle did stay in a long time. Usually it's quite quick, but this dentist was like really taking her time, just slowly injecting it. So I'm just sort of sitting there with a needle in my mouth for like a good 30 seconds or whatever it was.
If Connor's ever listens to this, he's going to pass out.
Yes. I mean, in general, this dentist seemed a little bit more aloof than usual, but hey, whatever. The job was done.
We sure it was an actual dentist and not someone that snuck in.
It was. She just seemed a bit more. Not ditzy. That's not the right word. Like she knew what she was doing, but like just a bit more like. Oh God! What a klutz I am! How do you?
My teeth are hurting at the thought of this right now. I do not like it.
She had to ask her assistant, because there's always a dental assistant. She had to ask her assistant what button turned one of the things on at one point. And I'm like, oh, that's a good sign.
That's like getting onto an airplane and being like, "All right, first time, guys." I think one time, I was gonna say, one time they were drawing blood from my dad, and the lady missed 2 or 3 times. And it was on my dad. It wasn't even on me. And I almost passed out. And I'm nowhere near needle phobic as Connor is. I still don't like it. I don't want to have to watch. And so I have a rule when it comes to get my blood taken. I tell them I get 1 shot. Because if it's more than 1, you're going to have to pick me up. And I'm a big boy. I'm pretty husky. And most of the people that are doing blood work are very, very small ladies. So it's a pretty good incentive. But yeah, lady was too busy talking. Missed on my dad 2 or 3 times. Luckily, because he broke his neck and had nerve damage, he didn't feel much of it.
Matt, there's no scenario in which you say, luckily, before the phrase, he broke his neck.
Yeah. Well, he broke his neck back when I was like 2 or 3. So there was quite a few years in between this. But because of that, he had nerve damage from his shoulders down. And couldn't feel a lot of stuff. He could walk outside here in Vegas. In the summertime and walk on the pavement with no problem, right? Because he couldn't really feel his feet. Also, it smelled like bacon, so it wasn't good. Like, don't do that. Don't walk on the concrete in Vegas in the summer.
Just because he can't feel it doesn't mean that it's not damaging his feet.
Yes, but exactly. But it didn't bother him, right? Like, so when this lady missed with the drawing the blood, oh man, it makes me faint just thinking of that. And she asked me, she goes, do you need something? As I'm sitting there, like, white knuckling onto the chair. But yeah, so you're a better person than me, because that needle stayed in longer than it needed to, and I was, thank you.
That's whatever, it's fine. Yeah, so that was, otherwise it was the highlight of my week. It was the notable thing that happened to me this week. Wasn't the highlight. Although TV's all of a sudden very busy. Black Mirror's back. Last of Us season 2 starts this weekend. Like it's all kicking off after like a few weeks of nothing.
Hey, right before we started, I was texting a friend, and she's been pressuring me to watch the first season of Last of Us, and I went, I have a co-host who's been telling me to do things for a very long time. You think this is gonna work on you?
Wait, did I tell you to watch that show? I don't know if I did. Did I?
I don't know if you have, but you might have. I know my brother has. I know you're a big fan of the game.
I am, yes.
Yes. So
it's. I mean, the show's good. The show is good. I don't know if it's necessarily the show I'd go out of my way to like pressure you to watch.
Yeah.
But I mean, it is good.
But yeah, so I might give it a go. We'll see.
I mean, there's no reason why you wouldn't like it. There's nothing in it that's.
I don't like zombie stuff, right? And zombie stuff really doesn't, go with,
Wait, since
I'm
when?
not a fan of it. Forever, Pete. When have you known me to like zombie things?
What, so you tell me to like Dawn of the Dead?
I'm not a big fan.
The original Dawn of the Dead?
Yes. George Romero. Like, it's fine. It's okay.
Okay,
I'm not a big fan of Shaun of the Dead.
And that's very different, but yes. Okay.
Yeah, but when it comes to zombie stuff, I can like Evil Dead's kind of zombies. I'm fine with that. on there. But yeah, it's just the whole zombie post-apocalypse type vibe. Not my thing. And that's fine. I don't have a problem with it. I'm sure it's all great as much as, I'm glad you loved Dawn of the Dead, and I understand why it's important. But I just it's okay.
Yeah, just this opens some questions about your taste, frankly. That's
What do you more questions? Pete, we all know this. You've known me for how long now?
I just doesn't like Dawn of the Dead original, again, just to emphasize that. We're not talking about Zack Snyder's abomination. But does love Kong Skull Island. There's like a spectrum there of just non-comprehension that I can't fathom, that just does not make sense to me, but that's fine, whatever.
Speaking of Kong Skull Island, I just remembered the big thing that I did this week, which was I watched the 80s Godzilla. I just remembered.
Oh,
yes.
Very good. Yes. And
yes. It's fine. It's it's definitely more in line with the original, right? With the 50s, with Gojira. I love the design of Godzilla in it, and the whole, using him like a natural disaster kind of vibe. I'm a big fan of that. But at the end of the day, I like watching the monsters fight, and essentially it's Godzilla versus Japan in that one. But it's good. It's a very well made movie. Scores a bit of the 80s, which I think times it or puts like a timestamp on it more than anything. Because sometimes I feel Godzilla's kind of timeless, like -1, right? That's set pre, post World War II.
That's very specifically timed then.
Yeah, but I mean, it doesn't feel like a movie of an era, right? And that's how the 80s one felt, and it didn't feel like a movie of an era until the score kicked in. Oh yeah.
I don't think you can say that though. I think new movies don't feel like they're of an era until you've far enough removed from them where you start recognizing what that era was. Because I've noticed recently, if you watch a movie from the mid-2000s, there's a very distinct feel to the 2000s. But at the time, you could not see that. Like, at the time, it didn't feel like movies from the 2000s had this.
Right. But when it comes to Godzilla, we've had enough, right? I don't know how many movies there are. You know what I mean? Like, I was saying, that didn't feel like anything. It just felt like a Godzilla movie.
Yeah, right? But what I'm saying is you won't notice what era it feels like until we're at least a decade plus removed from it. Right? All the movies from the 2000s of Godzilla feel like they're from the 2000s. Same with the 90s, same with the 80s. They all have...
Right. But are any of those set back in the past?
Right? That's a good question.
Because they're all very much set in that era. But I just want to point out that we'll call it the Return of Godzilla. It feels like it could be of any era of Godzilla except for the score.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
That's the point that I'm getting to on that one. Versus like -1 feels like, Godzilla as well. It's just because it's set in the 40s, right? There's nothing that ties it to anything else. It's just I guess it's just a good movie.
Okay.
But yeah.
Right.
But yeah. Definitely excited to check out Biollante next, because again, that's Godzilla versus a creature. And that's
the next one.
For.
Yeah. I don't have too many strong memories of that one. But I don't remember disliking it either. So
yeah, here's the thing: I can just put on a Godzilla movie and enjoy it more than I don't think I've watched. Granted, I haven't watched a lot, but most of the ones that I've sat down to watch have all been somewhat enjoyable. So
I think you've notably skipped a few of the stinkers, though. To be fair,
probably. Well, I don't know how the Godzilla versus the Smog Monster or Godzilla versus Hedorah, whatever you want to call it. I don't know how that well received that one is, but I love it. It's very. I love.
Fun enough time.
I love the. Yeah, I love the design of Hedorah. I love the message behind it. I love that Godzilla. It's Godzilla versus pollution, basically.
You know what? Go watch Son of Godzilla, and you come back to me and tell me you've not watched the bad Godzilla movie.
Gotcha. That's the one that's set on the island, right? With the with Godzuki.
I mean, there's a few set on an island, but that's the one that's mostly a clip show.
Oh, okay. I might, next overtime. That might help me take up some time.
Annoying stuff with a kid and baby Godzilla, or it's clips from old movies. That's the two things that make up that movie.
That's what I was thinking of, because I have seen that one on like TV when I was growing up. Home from school in the summer, flipping through the channels. Like, oh, there's a Godzilla movie on. Wait, it's this one.
Imagine paying to go see that in the theater, and half the movie is just clips from the previous ones you've already seen.
You know what though? There's a certain class of movie watchers right now that's essentially what they go and pay for.
I remember things
just to yell and point at the screen. So you can say Godzilla was ahead of its time.
Yes. Thankfully, I did not subdue myself to have to see Minecraft, so I've not had to put up with any nonsense.
Look, we've all heard my movie theater stories, and I would never find myself in the Minecraft movie opening weekend, right? But any kind of that type of shenanigans, I'll be making the news. If I get covered in someone else's soda and popcorn because they're throwing it at the screen over something called a chicken jockey, that's it. We're scrapping right then and there in the aisles.
There was reports that some police had to be called at some theaters, so yep. I suspect some people were not too pleased about some of the crazy antics, and it escalated.
But yeah, and I hate that it feels like studios are going to take the wrong lesson from this, because it did financially well.
Oh yeah, right? They're going to see this as driving ticket sales because it became a meme. So the TikTok crowd are all doing it, because there's been some harmless versions of this in the past, like Barbenheimer with the costumes, or what was the stupid movie where it became a meme for young guys to dress in suits to go see it? What
it was the Minions. You were Gentle Minion.
That was it. Yeah. And those are harmless because they're not bothering anyone. Yes. That's fine. Whatever.
No, this though is pointing at the screen. It's essentially it's the iPad kids, right? They've always had an iPad in their hand, and they need to be able to point and feel like they're participating. And I don't, man. If you want to do that, make a special screening. That's for that type of stuff. But I don't get it. I don't understand wanting to be that disruptive. That's not why I'm going to the movies. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh well.
It makes me feel old, as I guess is the point.
Well, you're almost 40, as previously established.
Yes. I can always tell when new versions of Goonies and Back to the Future are coming out, because we're the same age.
That's right. But hey, look in the bright side. You found a partner who's also almost 40, so you're together in matrimony.
The best part of this is she'll never know about this, so you can keep talking to me all you want.
I'll clip it and send it directly to her. Hey, listen to this.
She'll maintain that she's still 29, so it's fine.
All right, let's get into things. We'll start with the Kindle rankings, formerly known as the ComiXology Top 10, looking at Wednesday's books, seeing where DC's books land. Matt, what is your guess for number 1 currently on the Kindle store rankings?
Well, as far as I know, there's only one Absolute book, and I'm going to guess that it's Absolute Batman number 1, or number 7 is number 1.
You said that, you say, as far as I know, there was only one Absolute book, but you read all of them, so how on earth would you possibly miss one?
I'm being quirky, Pete.
Yes. Try to stay youthful in your old age, are you? Look at me, I'm quirky.
Yeah. You better, I'm going to start throwing popcorn. I know it won't affect you because this is the internet, but still.
Absolute Batman is indeed number 1 on the rankings. Number 2 is Amazing Spider-Man. I almost said Absolute Spider-Man. Amazing Spider-Man. Number 3 is Ultimates. Number 4 is Uncanny X-Men. Number 5 is Transformers. Number 6 is Storm. Number 7 is Green Lantern Corps. Number 8 is Phoenix. Number 9 is DC vs. Vampires World War V. And then number 10 is Action Comics. So Marvel dominating the top 5 or 6 there for the most part, but DC did kind of sprinkle in again towards the end. Admittedly, I do think this week for DC is mostly books that don't typically do as well. It feels like Marvel have got more heavy hitters out this week, so I guess I'm not surprised.
Well, and did you say that Amazing Spider-Man was a number 1 as well?
I don't think I mentioned that, but yeah, it's an issue 1. Yeah.
So that makes sense, that popping up so high.
God, how many volumes of Amazing Spider-Man have there been now? Because that's renumbered a lot over the years.
Yes.
So looking for elsewhere for DC though, a lot of the other things were just outside the top 10 because Batman and Robin was 11, Aquaman was 12, and Dark Patterns was 13. So A lot of the stuff was just outside that top 10. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Not a whole lot of things to muse over in this week's rankings. So we'll get into the books. Absolute Batman issue 7, Scott Snyder writing with Marcos Martin on the art. So yeah, we got a two-parter here with a different artist, and we're doing Mr. Freeze stuff. Very different take on Mr. Freeze. And what's interesting about that, just from a like outside the book level, is that Scott Snyder's already done like kind of a different take on Mr. Freeze, because back when he was doing the New 52 stuff, he did kind of an interesting swerve on it where it was still kind of recognizable as Mr. Freeze, but the whole twist being that Nora was actually a woman that he was stalking and that he was convinced was his love and his wife, but wasn't actually his wife. Yeah,
it wasn't this tragic love story. It was just a tragic horror story, right?
Yeah,
the way that he flipped it.
Yeah, and I don't believe that's still a canon. I think we've corrected that along the way.
It's definitely gone back to Mr. Freeze as kind of he's just driven by wanting to save his wife.
Yeah.
Right, so that's still there. The whole Heart of Ice kind of vibe to him.
So here we get a little tease of his backstory, where he's a child, and he's going with his father to investigate like old ice with old like creatures and bacteria in it. So it's like, okay, we're doing something a little different. This issue kind of splits into two segments, really, but they kind of intercut. And one of them is Bruce going to see his group of friends, that being, Croc, Harvey, Riddler, and Cobblepot. And they're mourning because their other friend that we have yet not mentioned on this book is Matches Malone. He has passed away. He is dead. And they're remembering. Bruce shows up and talks to them, and they're like, hey, we need to talk about this whole thing where you're being a bat. This raises a lot of questions, and Bruce is like, I'm not talking to you about this. But we do find out the other part of the story is that Bruce was trying to get papers so that he could work on the construction of Arc M, so the Arkham basically of this universe, which is being built by someone named, or a company named JK. Yeah, so he wants to get in there, and he contacted Matches Malone, who's good at getting fake IDs and papers and things like that, so that he could get in there. But Matches, being a bit of a daredevil, and the fact that Matches is a person in this universe is already interesting, because normally it's just an alias.
Yeah, that's what I did like. I like that spin on it, that because Matches is already a person, it's like, okay, so what's it gonna be like? But I do like that Snyder takes that kind of what we're used to with Matches Malone, the Bruce alias, and applies it here as this guy that he's good at getting things, and so if you kind of need something, just go to Matches. Everyone on the streets kind of knows. And so of course when Bruce goes to him, he's like, oh yeah, I've been over there. It's weird, and he gives Bruce some intel.
They tease a bunch of stuff here that it's like, cells without windows, that it's scarier than any, because Matches has been in and out of prison his whole life, so he's used to what a prison looks like, and this is way worse than that. But anyway, just as he's handing over all this stuff to Bruce and he's telling him all this, he gets all these like pores open up on his face, and he just starts bleeding from all over his face and dies. It's like very sudden, it's very brutal and graphic. And Bruce is trying to sort of look around and see who's responsible for it. And this is what leads him to investigating. Later on, he's trying to figure out, like, okay, who are the people, like, all this information he gave me, who's listed as going to this prison. And it lists a bunch of different doctors, all of whom we recognize. There's a Dr. Isley in there, Doctor Strange, as in Hugo Strange, not the Marvel character, just to be clear.
Yes.
But Freeze is the one that Bruce recognizes. He knows who that is by reputation, because Freeze has his own company, does a lot of experimental stuff with cryogenics, all that, which again makes sense given we're talking about Mr. Freeze. So his company is called V-Core, and Batman breaks in, and again this is intercutting with the stuff where he's arguing with his friends, and they're kind of complaining that, wait, were you always just using us to like build up this Batman thing? Like, did you trained with Croc because you wanted to learn how to fight? You hung out with, Harvey to learn about the legal system. They basically start accusing him of all the things that we've been saying about how he's used his friends group over his like years of like building up to being Batman. But once he gets into the lab, he switches to civvies because he thinks he can pretend to be a maintenance guy for the power system or something like that.
Yeah, an engineer that has to come in and check on it because V-Core's system is pulling in a lot of energy, and Bruce wants to find out why.
So he goes in, he notices this big wall of ice, which has got a bunch of like old animals kind of frozen in it, like a saber-toothed tiger, some old beetle, a mammoth.
You got a mammoth, and then the beetle, and then the way that it focuses on that beetle, I was like, I wonder if this is going to pay off later down the line.
It might. So he comes out, Victor Freeze, and he's actually quite friendly, and is like just kind of happy to have some company. At least that's what Bruce thinks. And we find out that this is actually Victor Jr., and that his father was Victor Freeze, and his mother was Nora Freeze, and that he as a boy got a disease, and because they couldn't cure it, they froze him with the belief that they could cure him later. And seemingly that's the case, because he's fine now. Yeah. Well, he's not fine, as the last page, but
Not yet. Yeah, we don't know that yet, though.
Yeah, but he's alive. He's definitely alive. And his parents got sick, so he's frozen them. So the spin here on the usual "my wife is frozen in ice" is that both of Victor's parents here are both frozen in ice, waiting to one day maybe be cured by whatever was killing them. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a bit different. I think what's interesting here, though, and at this point in the book, everyone's kind of sussed this, and it kind of reveals that, oh yeah, of course, he's the one who did this to Matches. This is because Bruce doesn't know what this virus is from, what this thing that caused it, and eventually it becomes clear. Well, the question isn't really what it is; it's more when did it come from? This idea that there's all this bacteria and stuff that's inside this ice that's been frozen for centuries, if not thousands and thousands of years. That's an interesting spin to say that Mr. Freeze, in this context of the Absolute Universe, would be using stuff that's been trapped in ice for millennia. And using that as like a bioweapon. So, and obviously we get look him at the end, and he does have like a demonic freeze persona that he turns into.
Body horror Freeze is something I was not expecting this week.
Yeah, it's more. This is more like a Marvel villain in a lot of ways, where he's been like affected, not by chemicals in this case, but by just being trapped in ice for most of his life, and like whatever else is in the ice has done this to him, and he's become this freeze demon.
Yeah. Very, very, his skin's all blue. He's got like veiny kind of, they look like veins going up his arms and stuff, like of blue. And so he's definitely distorted. Now, it looks like he can freeze with his touch too, because when he grabs Bruce's face there in the last page, it looks like those veiny things are
it does,
going up Bruce's face as well. So I wonder what's there. But yeah, I know Scott Snyder's wife is a doctor, so I'm wondering how much of this, this research came from, through her, because I know that it's a prevailing theory right now that as the Earth gets warmer, there's some of these things that are in the ice that might come back, and we're not ready for it, right? And so I wonder how much of that he's putting in here through that type of research.
I have to wonder if she ever throws in his face, like, which one of them has the more important job. One's a doctor saving lives, the other one's writing comic books. Albeit he's a very successful comic book writer, of course.
Yeah.
But
well, and he's also a teacher, right? That's where Tynan came from, was he was one of his students. He teaches writing at a certain, I think at a college level, I believe. So
that wasn't meant to be shade on Scott Snyder. That was just me joking about how his wife might dangle that in his face when she wants to.
Look, man, if he's got a sugar mama, good for him. You know what? He can do all the writing that he wants. She can do the important doctor work.
Well, you say that. Are you sure she's making more money than he is?
I don't know. I still believe doctors make a pretty good living.
I believe they do, but Snyder's a pretty successful comic book writer, so I don't know.
No, true. But I don't know if comic book creators are pulling those kind of numbers anymore like they were before.
Sure. I mean, I doubt they're struggling between the two of them. I'll say that much.
Oh yeah, definitely not.
So another thing about Mr. Freeze here is that he's got like kind of like emulating Frostbite. His like hands are black with the blue veins,
Yeah.
but most of his body's that pale blue, which you typically associate with Mr. Freeze. But it sort of gradually becomes black as he gets to his hands.
Yeah, like Frostbite. And then his eyes are red too, like we associate with the Mr. Freeze, like goggles or glasses that he wears under the dome, which is a nice touch. Because if you even look at when he's talking about his family history and they're somewhere on the tundra, they're wearing the parka and they're wearing those red goggles underneath too. So they almost look like they're snow goggles, kind of in a way. So I definitely like him playing with the Mr. Freeze look throughout all of this.
Yeah, the red goggles for sure. I mean, the parkas, I kind of associate that more with Captain Cold, but like, yeah, I mean, they absolutely, they're wearing the red goggles there.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. They're all bundled up, but their eyes are through those red goggles that look like, what we associate with Freeze.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this was a fairly interesting issue. I don't know, like, this feels like a fun spin on Mr. Freeze. I don't know if it's necessarily one that, like, instantly makes me go, oh, like, this is so exciting compared to the regular Mr. Freeze. I think I still definitely prefer normal Mr. Freeze to this. But it's an interesting change to it. But to be fair, though, I kind of feel that way about all the villains for the most part in this Absolute Batman. In that, I think it's interesting what he's doing with all these different versions of the villains, but I don't think any of them replace, in my head, like my preference for the classic original versions.
No, and that's because there's been so many layers, like especially with like Freeze, right? There's so many layers onto Freeze where at this point, like he's not an out and out anti-hero, but he does do things for the greater good more often than not and stuff. So just him turning him into a monster here, I think is cool because it is different.
It's fun, but it's less nuanced. There's not as much character to it.
Yeah, and then all the other names that he mentioned too. There's Langstrom, Isley, Strange, all those. It makes me excited though to see what his version of Ivy's going to be like in Man-Bat and that type of stuff. Because like, what does Man-Bat look like in the Absolute universe? When Batman's running around with this, this big hulking guy with the big like hooks on his cape and whatnot, like
he'll flip it. He won't actually mutate. He'll just be a guy with like some prop wings.
Yeah, something along those lines. So I'm just curious to see how that all works, or maybe he just has sound powers or whatever, But I do like the imagination, and I also in line with that. The matches Malone, like the scruffy sketchiness to him, that when you see him, you're kind of like, oh, he's just one of these type of guys that's kind of shifty. But then when he starts bleeding out through his entire face, you're just like, oh no, he was sick, right? So when he meets up with Bruce and stuff, he was in the final stages of whatever this thing was. So that was fun to play with that, expectation as well.
Yeah, also worth mentioning, Alfred does call him at one point and insists that he be resting his arm, which is still hurt. He's got a cast on. Bruce, of course, is ignoring that because he's Bruce, but still just worth mentioning. There is that relationship still kind of developing there.
It's starting to feel more familiar where he's like, don't go and do that. And Bruce is like, I didn't hear that. And he upgrades his cast tech anyways.
Yeah. I think that this is kind of enjoyable seeing and like encountering these new versions of things. I think the most exciting part for me, though, was his group of friends like confronting him about being Batman, and I'm really curious to see where that goes, because that feels like it's going to have more impact than just, wacky version of a villain that we're used to, and instead it'll be something that's more of an ongoing thing that will sort of change the dynamic of how he interacts with those around him, because they all know who he is, which is very, very different to typical Batman. I mean, sure, Batman has a lot of people who knows who he is now because he's built up the Bat family, but this is a completely different set of characters who's all in on the secret,
Right.
so that's interesting going forward to see where that goes. So,
how'd you feel about the art on those pages? Because they're all in shadow.
Well, they're all in silhouette, to be more precise. I mean, I think it worked. I didn't have a problem with it, certainly.
But I kind of wanted to see some of the reactions. Like the body language is spot on. Like Martin does the body language really well, but I kind of want to see some of their expressions more as they're telling Bruce, like, you're using us, and I would almost expect Bruce's to be more in silhouette, as he's not fazed by any of this, right? Because he's on a mission. That's the only thing he's focused on. But so to see the kind of counter between those, I just felt like seeing, the lack of expression on them was a takeaway. But again, like it's fine. I think the body language and stuff and the coloring and everything to do with the silhouette pages are done really well.
Well, I mean, if I try and sort of give you a reason for it, I would say that maybe the point of it is to represent they're all just boiled down to their basic like elements, because that's how they feel. They feel Bruce has used them for who they are. So literally all you see in the art is silhouettes, but with like one detail that tells you who they are. So Riddler's got like a question mark like necklace and glasses. Cobblepot's got the sort of fur like around his coat kind of thing.
Collar.
Croc just has the tracksuit lines going down the side of his thing. And then Harvey's just got hair, admittedly. As is less distinct, but he's the only one left, so it's Harvey. So, like, I think that's the idea behind that, is that they feel like they've just been used for what their roles are by Bruce. So that's how the art's representing them, is they're just boiled down to one basic feature each. I mean, you can debate if that's the right choice or not, but I think that's what they're going for.
No, that's fine. I was just wondering what you thought, because with me, I was kind of like, okay, after all of that stuff, all the meetup at Match's memorial site or whatever was done with the silhouettes, and I was kind of like, oh, okay, I would have liked to seen a little bit more, but again, it wasn't bad. I didn't dislike it. It was just, stylistically, it just left a lot of questions.
I think the other thing is that it made it feel very distinct from the other pages. So whenever it like switched between this like meeting that happened in this alleyway when they're talking about matches and then Batman, it always felt very distinct. So you were never confused that you jump back to this scene and then back to the other stuff, because it had such a consistent style. So I think there are benefits to it.
I guess that too.
Yeah. All right. What do you give it, Absolute Batman?
I'm gonna give this a 7.5. It's pretty good.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think I'm about there. I mean, I could maybe go to an 8, but I think 7.5 sounds right to me. And I don't think it has the intensity that the first arc did, and kind of that adrenaline that had pretty much the entire time. It's kind of lacking that a little bit. But I mean, it's a little two-parter before we get Dragata back. I don't think it's a bad time at all. And it's the sort of thing where there's so many like Batman villains to like introduce at some point that, yeah, every time you go between an arc, one of the villains that he's not going to do something as important with, they can get a little two-parter to say, hey, this is this world's version of, Tweedledee and Tweedledum or whoever.
Yeah.
So.
Oh man, I didn't even think about Jervis Tetch too. Seeing what he's like in the Absolute Universe.
He's the completely sane Hatter.
The not so mad Hatter.
Yes. Slightly perturbed Hatter. All right. Action Comics 1085. G. Willow Wilson writing with Gavin Guidry on the art. So this is our next three-issue arc from a different creative team, with Wilson writing here. So yeah, I mean, I think we're ending this here, because after this we're just on Mark Waid on action for a bit, I believe. So here it points out at the start that this takes place before Action 1050, and Absolute Power. Basically, just meaning that this is before Lois has powers and the other stuff that's going on, and Perry's still in charge of the Daily Planet. Which is fair.
He's not the mayor.
Which is fair enough. I kind of feel like, though, that's just a simple case of, like, Wilson comes in, writes this story, maybe even wrote it months ago, maybe, because there's nothing here that says this was written recently. This could have been written, like, 2 years ago, for all we know. And this is just a case of, well, this is sort of doing the classic sort of setting. I mean, yeah, Lois and Clark are married, and they reference that, but everything else is just typical. It's Perry's in charge of the Daily Planet, Lois is a reporter, so we're just going to put a little editor's note saying it takes place before all those things changed.
Yeah, it was kind of in that same vibe that the Gail Simone one was in, where that one felt a little bit more golden agey.
Yes,
with its presentation, but this just felt like a solid Superman story from back. I don't even want to say back in the day. It just felt like a solid Superman story in ways that some of the other 3-issue ones haven't. And I will tip my hand a little and say it feels like it's off to a good start.
It just kind of feels to me like other than referencing the fact that Lois and Clark are married, this is really just a Superman story that could be it from any time. Like, you know, it makes a reference to that. And to be honest, even then, I thought for a second it wasn't set during that, because the way Lois and Clark first interact, they kind of, the first couple of lines they have with each other, they're just kind of being playful. But like, until they actually mentioned we're already married, I thought, wait, does Lois not know who Clark is? Because it felt like Clark was acting really nervous and like, you know, old school bumbling Clark Kent. Turns out she just scared him by sneaking up behind him, which I could argue doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Because I mean, don't get me wrong, I'll buy it when Batman does it, because Batman.
Because that's Batman's gimmick.
Yeah, but I mean, Lois, you know, she's not like.
So I will say that he's just so focused on the story he's writing.
Okay.
That's where all his attention is. However, he's also Superman. You would think that part of him's also always listening for someone yelling help.
I would think so. Yes.
So you know.
I mean, it didn't bother me. It's a cute little scene. It's just, you know, if you stop and think about it a bit too much, maybe you start poking holes in it.
Yeah.
So basically, yeah, Lois was meant to be going on this story up in Greenland, but because Perry wants her on some local stuff, because she's good at dealing with the politicians, they do a whole thing where it's like, oh, well, you can't send them, you can't send them, you can't send Olsen, which I guess also says that it's still set relative recent, because Olsen's getting news stories rather than just being a photographer. But she's like, hey, that leaves Clark. So Clark gets this mission, this job to go out, and he's like acting all scared on the plane for the pilot, who's flying over the which, by the way, there's a little joke here where just before he leaves, she says, hey, whilst you're up there, you can go and relax in your man cave. And he's like, my what? And he's like, you know, the Fortress of Solitude. And I'm like, really, Clark? You didn't get the man cave was a reference to the Fortress of Solitude? Come on.
I did think it's like, no, Lois, Bruce has the Bat Cave. Just because I'm Superman doesn't mean I have the Man Cave.
It's just one of those little things where it felt like that line almost feels like it was written in like 2003, when the idea of the Man Cave was like a new thing, and Clark just hadn't heard of it yet. But in 2025, it's really weird that he just doesn't understand what that means.
But it's very much like she's throwing a man joke, a dad joke. Because the way that he goes, Lois, and she goes, sorry, I can't resist myself sometimes. But yeah, it's a little bit clumsy. That's all. Yeah.
So yeah, he flies out on the plane, not himself, and meets these researchers who are doing all this project. They're trying to, like, you know, beam back up solar light to try and reverse. Because even funnily enough, this kind of gets into the whole the greenhouse effect of like the melting ice and that releasing stuff. Like, it's funny how we just talked about that a little bit in Absolute Batman. But it's here as well, and they're concerned that someone's sabotaging their equipment. And they're very isolated out here, like, you know, no one will come out and see them, they can't communicate with anyone. And then out of nowhere, two polar bears with cybernetic implants jump into the scene. This is why you like this issue, isn't it, Matt?
Partially.
You know?
Also, I was getting, as they're going around the research station, I was also getting Thing vibes. You know? And it's just, I know, it's the frozen wasteland and the isolation and all that other stuff. And maybe we'll get there, depending on you know, when the villain's revealed who it is. Maybe we'll get some kind of techno-organic thing going on. But yeah, no, the polar bears, I was like, oh man, you don't want to deal with the polar bear by itself. And now you gave it cybernetic upgrades. Good thing Superman was there. You know?
Yes. Yeah, Superman, like, you whisk away, he comes back in an outfit. Although notably not his regular outfit. He's wearing, I'll call it the Arctic Blast version of the Superman outfit.
This felt like back in the 90s when they were selling toys, like a lot of toys. You would get all these different versions of them, and it would be like Arctic Blast Batman and Arctic Blast Superman. And there were things that like this would never showed up in the comic. They were just strictly to sell a toy. That said, the DC, you produce this and put a figure out of it, I will buy it. It looks really nice.
Yeah, I will not, just for the record, but
yes. Yeah, but you're not a toy collector.
You goddamn right I'm not.
Yes. I remember you back in the days of our internet groups on Facebook, you getting yelled at for not liking Funko Pops.
Oh yeah, those stupid ugly little things.
Yep. And some person got very upset with you And you're just like, oh man, God forbid I have an opinion. And you weren't even being like shitty about it. You were just like, I don't like them. It's cool that you do. I don't.
I never
I don't know
got
why you would
it.
waste your money on them.
I never got the Funko Pop obsession.
And then it turns out that Pete was correct, because now they're just, plastic that's taking up landfills, speeding up the Arctic melting. So
yeah, it was a fad. It was a fad that I can only imagine there's a select handful of people who are still hardcore into collecting every one of them, but that's about it. Anyway, so yeah, Superman's in this white and light blue outfit for whatever reason.
Well, Lois had told him he doesn't want to stand out too much up there, right? Because he's supposed to be.
Oh, so this is camouflage, is what you're telling me?
Yeah. Because she says, you don't want to stand out in the blue and the red, so he's wearing something not to stand out as much. I mean, does that logic hold up? Not really. It's Superman. I don't think him being in the Arctic is out of question. But
yeah, I don't know why it would. Well, I guess it's because Clark's up there, so maybe people would put two and two together or something. But it's not like Superman can't just fly to other parts of the planet anytime anyway, and it's not like it's not like he doesn't fly up to the North Pole on a regular basis. So yeah, but fair enough. If that's the reason, that's the reason.
Yeah. So she tells him the Arctic's a lot busier than it used to be. You might want to dress more discreetly if you want some time out on the ice. So again, maybe it was just an excuse to draw a new costume.
I mean, it is. That's absolutely what it is. They just wanted to have a reason to do a different outfit. So whatever. Anyway, he grabs the bears, and the bears just kind of like disappear when he's holding them. Like he flies them up, and they just kind of like melt away or like disintegrate in his hands. And it's like, well, that's weird. So he talks to the scientists again, and they're convinced there's some sabotage here. Superman goes out looking to try and see if he can find anything. And ultimately, a giant robot comes up out of the snow and starts just saying over and over again, comply with verbal directions. And Superman, takes a big punch, doesn't get phased, throws the robot back, all that kind of stuff. So we get this big action scene, and then the big reveal at the end is who's behind this robot. It is, in fact, Kilgore, who's got some upgrades. And he's like, yep, I've been assembling a bunch of stuff to take on you. Cliffhanger. This is just okay. I don't know. You're definitely a lot more positive on it than I am. I don't think it was a bad read. I think it was an easy read. I think Wilson's dialogue does flow pretty well. But I can't say that the randomness of the bears or the Kilgore stuff, like as soon as the giant robot came out of the snow, I was just like, what is this? What is this story? It just feels random to me up until a point.
And I went, oh, this is random. What was going on here? It piqued my interest.
It's just fluff. That's what I'll say. It's just a fluffy comic book story, which I have no problem reading it, but I am not going to remember a single thing about this story in 3 months' time.
Well, yeah, but I'll definitely remember this is the cybernetic polar bear story. So, But yeah, Kilgore, once I started getting into the techno-organic stuff, I'm like, are we doing Cyborg Superman? I know we just dealt with Cyborg Superman in another book, but maybe, or Metallo, or something along those lines. But yeah, no, Kilgore, who I'm not that familiar with, but it seems like a lot of similar motivations. Kind of this living techno thing. Give Superman something to punch.
I mean, I don't remember the last time we saw Kilgore. I'm sure it's happened during the course of this show, but I do not remember it off the top of my head. Yeah. I mean, it's fine. Like, I don't have any strong feelings one way or the other, to be honest. And just a couple of things that stuck out to me, like a couple of bits of dialogue feeling a bit weird, or the excuse to have the new outfits standing out as just being kind of strange. The art from Guidry is all right. Like, I don't necessarily love the way he draws faces, I have to say, but it does have a sort of clean style. I do think I think the layouts are all right. I think the moment where the big robot punches Superman and it doesn't affect him and it confuses the robot, I think that's a well done little sequential moment, but there's not a ton of that in the issue that kind of caught my eye. So yeah, it's just okay. Is kind of where I land on it. Well,
and like you said, like it was fluff, but I feel like at least I was entertained by the fluff, and a lot of it wasn't spent like, oh man, what's going on here, in a different way. Kind of like, although this is how I started the last arc too, where I was very invested in what was going on with Major Disaster, right? And then it kind of drifts off into some silliness.
I mean,
hopefully this sticks the landing more.
I think that started a lot stronger. That had a lot more potential when it started, that last arc. I think this one is just kind of starting out as fluff. So if it becomes anything more than that, then I'll be pleasantly surprised. But right now, I'm like, this is just, it's fine.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun with it. It was an entertaining read. I like seeing Superman doing up there in the Arctic and interacting with the scientists and trying to do the whole Clark Kent, oh, did you, you missed Superman. Oh, that always happens. And again, it's very tongue-in-cheek kind of stuff. So, yeah, I was entertained.
Yeah, I'm sure you're about to overrate it. So what's your rating out of 10?
If I give it a 9.5, you're going to yell at me. So we're not going to do that. No, it's a 7.5. It's good.
Yeah, it's like a 6.5, I think. I wouldn't quite call it good. It's okay. So Green Lantern Corps, issue 3, legacy number 106. So, yeah, we had the cliffhangers last time. Atrocitus and some of the other Red Lanterns were using Zilius
Zox.
There you go. And all his rage to power their ship. But we get a bit more context for that, and we find out that the Red Lanterns almost entirely died when their power battery was destroyed, and the book goes into that quite some way, where a few of them survive basically just because their rings still had enough charge to kind of keep them going for a bit. And we get kind of like the idea that they were invaded by this, other alien force, these slavers, and they basically fought back once Zilius had all that rage sort of erupt through him. So this ship they've got is actually one they took. They sort of basically defeated the slavers and took it. So in a weird way, it makes you kind of sympathize with Atrocitus in that during this.
Which I always feel like we forget Atrocitus' origin, where his entire sector was taken out by the Manhunters, right? I just remember, I think it was in Blackest Night, where his thing is, and we did nothing. And it was like this thing, we were just existing, and then the Manhunters wiped out. And he had all this rage and nowhere to put it, and that's how the Red Lantern Corps. So the fact that they're getting back to kind of that, where we're feeling a little bit of sympathy for these, characters that are out and out monsters, at least that's how they're presented, I appreciated that a lot. And then with what we've seen, what that Red Lantern energy, right, when it's all housed in that one being can do. So I feel like we understand the stakes here, that Zilius is going to burn up, and then that's kind of it for the Lantern Corps, right? For the Reds. And that's, so I was a little bit invested, a little bit more, knowing all of this from reading both books at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, they referenced it multiple times that Zilius would be exploding if it wasn't for the fact that they were siphoning all the energy off to run the ship. And that becomes a big problem later when the ship gets torn in half and Zilius is going to explode, and Atrocitus actually kind of tries to absorb it to save him, and ultimately it ends up being Shiera's mace that kind of the nth metal absorbs enough of it to save Atrocitus, but Atrocitus is ready to sacrifice himself to save Zilius. So it does do a good job of saying, hey, he actually does care about the people in his core. He's not just this awful monster, like you say. So I think that moment works quite well. Obviously this idea that Hawkwoman does want to just kill him, but John keeps talking her out of it. And then ultimately she's the one that helps save him. And she remembers, oh yeah, being a hero is not just flying off the handle and killing people. This is, of course, ignoring what breaks the ship in half in the first place, which is that giant egg of nth metal that came out of the remains of Thanagar. It hatches, and inside it is Horus.
Yes, the Thanagarian deity that is, I think, and this is why I miss having Connor on the show, because in Egyptian mythology, one of the major gods is Horus, son of Osiris. And so, I'm not that well versed in Thanagarian lore and whatnot, but if the idea is that the Thanagarians came to ancient Egypt and that their concept of Horus is what gave the Egyptian god Horus its form, I think that really checks out. But to have this gigantic eagle-headed golden deity pop up and destroy this, I can't say that it's metal enough. This was rad as hell.
You say gold. It is gold in color, but more specifically, it's made of nth metal.
Yes, it's a big nth metal deity, right? But yeah, I was using gold as the color, not as the what it's made out of, right? But yeah, it is speaking in hieroglyphics, right? So we don't know what it's saying, but it's angry. It's angry. It's been woken up.
Yeah. So and all through this, like, there's a little bit with Kilowog and Razor, and Kilowog trying to pep Razor back up and saying, "Hey, you feel bad because of Sorrow over there." But a lot of this big part is like try to like hold the ship together. John has to kind of make a big construct to try and keep it intact, as they're evacuating all the people off the ship, and it's all big action stuff. It's really cool, and that leads to what we were talking about earlier with Zilius like overloading and Atrocitus almost sacrificing himself by like taking the energy from him, and then ultimately Hawkwoman kind of diffusing it a little bit. So. No, it's a big thing, and then she talks to Horus and kind of says, "Hey, I'm Thanagarian. Our world's gone," and she basically says, "Hey, why don't you spare us, and I will tell everyone that you're back. I'll tell all the other Thanagarians that you're around, and of your mercy. Isn't that what you're supposed to be, and all that? That you don't destroy the helpless." And he's like, "Oh, you are a true child of Horus. Yes, tell them. I will send you a dream when I found my people a new homeworld." So he's going to go look for a new world, a new Thanagar, effectively. So that stuff kind of sets up. So we kind of end up where, like, okay, all these Red Lanterns who were on the ship, like, are taken back to Oa and kind of willingly are, like, kept. Like, Atrocitus doesn't sound thrilled that he's going into a science cell, but it's kind of like, hey, we're like, they don't actually tell him they're going to rebuild the power batteries, but it's kind of like, hey, we'll put you in the science cell and you'll be frozen until everyone can be safely woken up again. But it's definitely kind of this sort of like, frenemy kind of a vibe to it, where Atrocitus is still saying that he knows what rage feels like and how much it'll grow and all the rest of it. But it's just interesting status quo, which I'm very curious, like, if we get to a point later in this run where we literally do a break glass in case of emergency, we need an army. Oh, we've got Atrocitus and we've got all these other characters that we've been trying to like keep on ice because they're in danger because there's no power batteries to like funnel all the energy. That could be a big moment later down the line.
You also remember with the Red Lanterns, that Red Lantern energy takes all your blood, and that's what sustains you is the rage, is the power of that red, right? So they're essentially dead walking here, so that they have to be frozen so they can stay alive.
Yeah.
And so what if they can find a way to channel the energy, right? We get to that point, and they're the Starbreakers or whatever they're going to be called, the Sorrow Corps are overwhelming everybody, and you get the Rage Lanterns coming out to help. That'd be super cool.
Yeah, no, I could see, especially if we end up filling these cells up with a few more people who could be like broken out as potential allies later in some big war. This idea that any emotion on the spectrum is, they're all valid. We've talked about how there needs to be balance and they're all like a vital part of the entire thing. But this idea that the entire spectrum will unite to take on the lack of emotion, which is sorrow. Well, I mean, that isn't an emotion. You know what I mean? Like that's the opposite of. It's good stuff.
And because it's all gray as well, right? And so you have the color spectrum at play here against whatever Starbreaker's up to with Sorrow, which is done in grays. Because they kind of did that against the Black Lantern Corps, right, in Blackest Night, but it was very an uneasy truce.
Yes.
So here them all being on the same side to unite because they're kind of one kind of force. I think that'd be super cool.
Especially since I think, like, if the other cores, at least some of them, are aware that the Green Lantern Corps have rebuilt their power batteries because that balance needs to be maintained, it feels like the truce would be a lot more, like, peaceful, a lot more amicable, and, like, understand. I was
gonna say an actual truce, right? There's no conditions. It is, hey, we're all in this together kind of vibe. And checks and balances and all that stuff, because we've seen the red now. We've seen a little bit of Larfleeze with the orange,
a little bit,
and the Silver Core, right? We've seen a little bit of the yellow.
Yeah, there was
blue,
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the yellow, we had that woman freaking out back in I think it was issue 1 of this book.
Of this
we had
one,
that character, yeah.
And then green, we're surrounded by blue. We haven't seen too much of. Like Razor's been kind of the representative there, but there's
I'm sure we'll get there. I think the thing is that, I mean, maybe that'll be interesting to see how is blue manifesting dangerous because it's hope, but maybe there will be a danger to it. Like that'd be curious to see. I'm sure we're going to see them all though, at different points.
Yeah, oh for sure. And then Indigo's the one that we still, even under John's, we didn't really dig too deep into. Right, so I'm wondering how they're gonna spin all of that into.
Well, Indigo's whole thing is that the members were all like killers or people who were turned good by the Indigo light. So are they all just bad right now? Are they all just going around being their old bad selves? That's an interest. That was definitely dangerous in and of itself, just because of that reason.
Yeah.
So,
and then I was saying to round out the rest of the court, we saw with Carol and that entity, the Predator. We saw that in Green Lantern, too. So we've touched kind of on all of them. So it's curious to see who's going to end up here, as we start to fill out the core.
Yeah. So John and Shiera have like a dinner together, and she talks about how he's, kind of doing all right and inspiring. Although she is a little concerned about this whole like sister construct, and she sympathizes when she finds out that his mum died, and so it's kind of, I really like getting a couple of pages like this where you get to have the human drama come out a little bit, because we really liked that moment last issue where they had the tension in the closet effectively. This was nice to have like John finally just talk to someone about like all the crazy things that's been happening to him. So I think it's good. And then a little bit more Kilowog and Razor talking about what's going on. Just making sure Razor's doing all right. Honestly, if I have a critique about this issue, which I very much enjoyed, it's just that the final page is just kind of like, oh, we need a cliffhanger teasing danger, but we don't really have anything we want to reveal yet. So we basically just have Sorrow saying that, oh, me and Starbreaker are going to put a stop to all these cores. That's basically it. I mean, I guess the only notable thing is that he's on the Red Lantern homeworld, because we see all the dead Red Lanterns sitting around.
He's on. And it seems like there's some crystallized rage there, right? That was at the base of the power battery.
Yes.
So if this is one of those things that they're going to need to build their own battery, it seems like they're going out of their way to collect. So
yeah, I just think this last page was kind of a nothing cliffhanger, really, just because they need something to end the issue on. That's like the one critique I'd give it, but otherwise I really enjoyed this issue.
And just with the way that it ends, it could have ended on Kilowog and Razor going in, to this new Green Lantern Hall, right? Going in. This almost feels like a superfluous like mid credit here, where it's like, oh, look what Sorrow is up to.
Yeah.
So yeah, I kind of tacked on here at the end, but no, in with the way that it's handled, it's just one page, and I'm not didn't spoil too much for me.
Yeah, the art for Pasarin's pretty solid as per usual. He's one of those artists that I've always described as a very reliable house style type of artist.
And very, very much I associate with Green Lantern as Pasarin. That's
fair, yeah. I appreciate kind of the, like, not always perfect, but definitely a good solid portrayal of like the facial emotions and things like that. Something like the dinner scene towards the end kind of requires like the apprehension or the happiness and various moments to kind of shine through, and I think it does for the most part. The big standout pages though absolutely are the, it's the birth of Horus, and then like the Horus ripping the ship in two, and all that kind of stuff. And arguably even the moment where Atrocitus is absorbing all the red energy to try and save Zilius. I think that's the peak of the issue, is that moment where it feels like it's fleshing out that character quite a bit and making you kind of sympathize with them, and making it very clear that this isn't just, oh, Atrocitus is just a villain and that's all he is. No, there's a bit more to it than that.
Yeah, he's definitely nuanced, and Morgan Hampton, Jeremy Adams, don't forget that, which I appreciate.
Yeah. So no, yeah, pretty good. I'm still enjoying this book. Matt, what are you giving Green Lantern Corps?
I'm gonna give this an 8.5.
Yeah, I think I'll just go an 8, but I do really like it, particularly that stuff with Atrocitus in the middle. I really, really dug. So, and it feels like everything's building as well between both books, which is really nice too. So that's also cool.
I was gonna say, it's hard for me to not give an extra 0.5 to a metal space god. You know?
All right. Batman and Robin, issue 20, legacy number 86. Philip Kennedy Johnson writing with Miguel Medonca, Hugo, Petrus, and Juni on the art. So yeah, this was kind of a weirder issue because they did like a lot of it is kind of like Damien's like journal or kind of yeah, I don't know what you might call it.
There are things that I like here, but things that also frustrated me. So I don't want to say this felt like filler because, you know, filler is a kind of dumb thing that people are using to try to call something like a waste of time. And I don't feel like a waste of my time. But with everything that's been going on with Memento, stopping right now and getting into Damien's headspace and whatever, I just wasn't expecting that in this issue. However, the way that it's presented with the different kind of art styles, where first we get Thomas's journal, right? And that's done in a specific art style, the main story, and then the rest of the book is all Damien's done by Juni Ba. I kind of like the way it's presented.
Yeah. No, I think there's some nice like choices in how it's presented. I agree with that. I do like the idea of like seeing some of the stuff that Damien's read in Thomas's journal. It's inspired him to sort of change how he thinks and what he wants to be, and maybe he wants to be a doctor instead of a Batman, like he's always thought he wanted to be. I do really like that idea. I do think it's fair though to critique that by the end of this issue, it didn't really feel like things had really advanced all that much, and I think that's maybe where some frustration could come for some people that feel like, yeah, maybe part of the choice here was like, hey, we have to give the regular artists a bit of a break, so we'll do this kind of you know, issue that's a fill-in, but it's kind of a fill-in in the context of like working within the confines of the book. But because we had that big cliffhanger last time of, oh, the bad guy, Memento's got Damien, like, okay, you get a couple of pages of the Bat family all looking for him. I do love Batman saying, find your brother. That's a nice little touch. And I do like the pages of Batman going through the city and seeing like just all these like effectively ghosts or memories of these horrible things that have happened, which, you know, we've been seeing it for the last issue or so as well. But I think I like that too. Once we get into the Juni Ba stuff though, and I like Juni Ba's like style for the type of story it is. You know, I like that Robin mini that he did for Black Label, and I think here having, you know, him give his thoughts and all this stuff and talking about why he likes working with Lautrec and how he wonders if Lautrec would like compare him to his father if he knew that Batman was Bruce and stuff like that. Like, I think all of that is interesting to explore Damien's thoughts. It's kind of come at a weird part of the arc, and part of me kind of appreciates it in the sense that, okay, I get why we're doing this when Damien's been kidnapped, and it feels like Bruce's only connection to him right now is this piece of writing and drawing that Damien's done, right? So there's this idea that we're cut off from Damien himself, but we get to get a look into his head via his journal. I get why you're doing that when he's kidnapped, but I also kept expecting it to end a bit quicker than it did, so we could get back to a bit more present day advancement. But instead, by the time the Juni Ba pages are done, there's only 2 pages left of the book. And there's really not much to those final 2 pages. Don't get me wrong, the idea that one of Bruce's hallucinations of a dead person is Alfred at the end, who gives him some advice, is interesting. I don't hate that. But I also don't think like the final beat that it ends on, where he's like, hey, you know, look at what Damien's left in the notes, like he's assembled everything that you need to catch him, kind of thing. That felt like a bit of a lukewarm cliffhanger, mainly just, and I think it's because we just spent like the whole issue reading Damien's book. It didn't feel like saying, it didn't feel like him saying, oh, all the clues that you need are in Damien's writing. Felt like it landed that much to me. I don't know.
No, I feel the same way. Because I was enjoying the Juni Ba art and stuff. Then we get to the A, I'm like, okay, we're gonna end this where, you know, when Damien's like, I'll be a doctor like my grandfather was, and then it's Batman reading and stuff. I was like, okay, and then we get this that he goes to find the casebook that we saw that Robin was writing on. which is a nice little thematic like story piece, right? Where they turn and use that image of Juni Ba's Robin writing in the red book, and then that's how we know which one to pull from, right? But the last 2 pages just kind of feel like like you said, it kind of loses its steam by that point.
Yeah, it's just, I think I like everything that's in this issue. It just, at the end, feels a little unsatisfying as a chapter, I guess. It probably won't be too bad when you're reading it in the collection, because you'll just sort of go straight on to the next issue. But I think as a monthly comic book, this one feels a little frustrating, and it doesn't feel like there's enough of a hook at the end to make you excited about the next one. It just kind of feels like we're still in the same place. That said, though, I do like seeing all these thoughts that Damien had. It's mostly just kind of confirming things that we kind of knew that he was thinking based on the previous issues. But I do think having that direct look into it is quite good. It just feels like it delays any kind of follow-up to the cliffhanger from him getting kidnapped a little bit, which probably means that as far as the issues of this book goes, it feels a little bit weaker overall compared to what they've typically been.
Yeah. How'd you feel about the Thomas pages with his journal?
I liked them quite a bit, actually, because I mean, they're a bit, they're a bit wordy, all right? And I always complain in comics when you get like a wall of text, because that's not what I'm here for.
Yeah.
But I do like that the drawing style is just, this almost like pencil sketches, but really high quality, because it really felt like, a grown man did this. This was a grown man's drawing. And that almost feels insulting to Juni Ba. That looked like a child's drawing, but in a good way. Like, he has a style.
Yeah, Juni Ba has a style that is going after, and just the thematic ties to, Thomas was an artist and Damien wants to be more like his grandfather on that side. I like thematically those go together, and then the story of, parental regret is that Thomas was supposed to make, an origami boat with Bruce and put it out on like the pond, and then he got busy at work and he didn't get to, and Bruce pretended like he wasn't upset, but he could tell, and he never wants to let his son down. That ties to Bruce, wanting to kind of be more of a father, not like he's not a father figure, but you know what I mean, acting as like, I need to take more interest in Damien and not Robin, right?
Yeah, and
so it fit that here too, which I did like.
And he goes to Alfred for advice and is very thankful that Alfred's in Bruce's life, which feels very ominous, because Alfred's going to have to raise him. But I think even just something as simple as there's no color in these pages, they're just pencil sketches effectively. It has like a more mature kind of tone to it, which really nicely contrasts. So there's a lot of really smart artistic choices here between what it's doing. It's just a little frustrating as a chapter of the ongoing arc, I guess, is the thing. But
I agree.
I can't be too mad at it though, because I do think there's a lot of really nice things in it, and I think if you're reading this as a collection later on, where you're just going through 5 or 6 issues in a row, I don't think you're going to be minding this all that much. I think this will fit in nicely, but I think as a monthly issue of a comic book, it's a little frustrating how little it advances anything forward.
Yeah, because I was like, man, what's Damien going to do with Memento? And then we don't really see it at all.
Yeah.
So, a little bit of a bummer there. But again, no problem with the presentation and the story they chose to tell. Maybe it's an expectation thing.
All right, what you give him, Batman and Robin?
I think this is a straight 8.
Huh. I think I go 7.5. I don't think I can quite call it great, just because of the slight mixed feeling about it not advancing anything. But there are a lot of good things in it, certainly. Aquaman, issue 4, Jeremy Adams writing with John Timms on the art. I hate to feel like, there's a negative tone to the show. Not that the scores have been that low, but it's not been like, I've not been throwing out, 8s and 9s as much this week. Aquaman 5 is not going to be breaking that trend, I'll tell you that right now. Or 4, I should say.
4.
Yeah.
Yes.
Although, I'm actually shocked that this is already issue 4, because one of the feelings I had when I finished this, and I noticed it was issue 4, I was like, it feels like very little has happened in 4 issues, and I feel very frustrated by that.
I feel like he's gone 4 steps. and right?
I mean, we spend two pages, with him seeing Mira for the first time. Okay, fine. And then he's tied up on this boat going up to see Dagon on this water like elevator that's going up to Dagon. And he tries to tell Laurie, hey, you're better than this, you're not evil. And she's like, I have no choice. Aquaman is like, okay, whatever. And then his friends, Merlin and the other one, they're like,
John and Vivian.
Merlin and he's Merlin.
No. Vivian's the lady in the lake, so that's why you're getting confused with the Arthurian legend. But Arion's the old sorcerer king of Atlantis.
Isn't that Merlin?
Right? No, it's Arion.
Well, I know he's not called Merlin, but I'm saying, isn't that just what Merlin is in the context of King Arthur?
Well, yeah, but Merlin wasn't he wasn't a king, right? He was the advisor to the king.
Whatever, right? These are two characters. They're like, hey, where did Arthur go? We have to go try and help him. And then, like, Aquaman just uses the water kinesis, right? The aquakinesis, to pull any water out of the wood to make it really dry so it's easy to break through, and breaks himself out. He ends up in the big stream of water that's going up to Dagon. And you know, he starts fighting off the mermaids that come after him, but then his two friends show up, right, quite quickly, and give him his big, what did they call it? The Trilance saber, the weapon they made, which is a sword, but the hilts kind of get two other blades to make it a bit of a trident-esque kind of thing.
So I don't know how you are on social media and who you follow and what social media you're on anymore, but did you see Jeremy Adams? He built up a mock-up of this to send a video to Tim's to show him how it works. It was very entertaining. I
did not see that, no. What do you mean how it works?
Yeah, so Adams...
What? You stab people with it. What else is there?
No. So the design of this, as that it's a Trilance saber, is that it's a combination of kind of like a sword and a trident, right? So he went to Home Depot and bought things to show how he wanted the art to look. That sometimes he can hold it like a sword, sometimes he can hold it like a staff. You can move the hilt up and down on it. And just the whole vibe was Jeremy Adams being an excited kid trying to show off his new toy. And I was like, I wish I could get excited for anything in this book as he was to show off that saber.
Yeah.
You know?
So yeah, they give him his sword.
This
right?
is feeling good.
Right.
Yeah.
They give him his sword. He just smashes it into the ship, splits the ship in two, and makes some, cries out, fights the mermaids a bit. And that's basically it. The book just kind of ends. I was shocked when it ended because I felt like nothing really had happened other than him just breaking out of the ship. And he's like, hey, tell your god the new king has come. Tell him the dark tide is here, blah, 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 blah. And that's it. That was the end of the book.
Also, the dark tide sounds like you're the villain, bro. I know Dagon's supposed to be this big water elemental demon thing. But when you're going, the dark tide's coming, and that is ominous. And not in the way that you think it is. So I feel like there's something afoot. Also, Arion and Vivian go through a gate that is shaped like the letter Alpha. So I'm really starting to believe that the Omega Gate has nothing to do with the New Gods. They're using the Greek letters.
That would stand to reason, because it doesn't really feel like it has anything to do with the absolute universe or anything like that.
Nothing.
Which just kind of feels like a bait and switch at this point, because they knew what we would all be thinking.
Yes.
When we saw that back in issue 1.
Because as the ship's going up on that waterway, there's another Omega Gate it looks like they're going through. So I'm like, oh, they're just using Greek letters as these portal gates and whatever. So yeah, man. Again, I just wish I could get excited for anything in here. I'm really trying. But I mean, like you said, it's not moving like at all.
Admittedly, like I kind of went into this week with a little bit of a bad attitude, because at this point it's kind of lost me. So I'm now going in a bad mood, expecting not to like it. But I didn't start off that way. It kind of put me there after a few issues. So I'm just really hoping that when this arc is done, when we're done with this Arthur shit, this King Arthur shit, and we're back in Atlantis doing whatever, that I can get more on board with it. But right now, everything about this, and it's not necessarily the broad ideas are that bad. Like, if you told me, okay, there's going to be a story where Atlantis just disappears and Arthur has to go into a different dimension to try and find it, and it's going to tie into the blue, which is the water version of the red and the green and all that. And the villain's going to be Dagon, which is not like a DC Comics thing. Dagon's a thing. Like there's movies about Dagon, like there's a horror movie about him even. I'm like, okay, I can see that working. I can see that good. But the way the whole disappearance of Atlantis was handled was just such a, like, where did they go? Oh, maybe it's tied to like the absolute stuff because the Omega symbol.
Yeah.
Just made it all feel so disjointed, and it felt like as soon as he like went through that portal, every sort of encounter he had just kind of felt like just kind of weird. Like Laurie Lamar being one of the mermaids working for Dagon just feels like a, hey, you recognize her. Admittedly, most of you only recognize her because she was in World's Finest like 2 weeks ago, but still, most of you recognize her. Isn't that something? And it just kind of feels like at this point we still have no idea why Atlantis was taken, where it was taken to. I don't know. Everything just feels unfulfilling to me right now.
And if I remember right, wasn't it because of that pearl that Aqualad had found?
I think I think that's there for us to suspect. I don't think they confirmed it was though.
Okay. All right. Because I'm trying to just put everything that I remember into this. And again, that's why it's a shame that it just doesn't feel like it's moving. That there's not a lot of story here.
But
it's not.
I mean, that's true. I mean, no, you're right. But it's not just that though. So the entire mystery of where did Atlantis go has been so uncompelling because there's no seeds or anything about it that's like exciting. There's nothing like, because at least when we thought, oh, did they go to the absolute universe? Oh, that could actually be kind of wild. But what if there's no absolute Aquaman because the regular Aquaman just goes there? What if regular Aquaman just is the absolute Aquaman? Like there were so many possibilities where it might be doing something kind of crazy. And instead it's done just like the most uninteresting things constantly. Like since issue 2 onwards.
Yeah. Remember when we looked forward to Aquaman books?
I do.
Back in the day?
I do.
Yeah. Those were a good time.
I was looking forward to this one until I started reading it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's just a shame. I mean, Tim's art's pretty solid, you know, it's bright, it's colourful, it's, you know.
All the mermaid stuff looks fine, even though it annoys me, right? But they look like scary mermaids as opposed to, you know, the traditional friendly looking mermaids, because they got like snake kind of tails instead of fish tails, so that something fills up with that, and you know, but yeah, no, the art looks cool. The saber looks all right. Like it doesn't look like it's like it doesn't look like it has those movable pieces or anything. So I'm still a little confused on how they built it and whatever, but again, it's magic. Like, I'm not going to worry about it too much.
There's a reason why they're concealing it from us, but you know, Joe would make it went a long way if we actually got some scenes of Dagon tormenting like Mera or the other like key members of Atlantis, like maybe seeing what he's doing with them, if he is doing anything with them. And maybe there's a reason why they can't show us that yet, because it's something weird and wild. It has to be a twist or what. But, like, maybe just showing that they're actually there and need to be saved in some capacity would like at least add some stakes to this. It's because it almost feels like we could get up to Dagon, which we've been spending several issues building to now, and he could turn around and say, oh, I didn't take Atlantis, that's got nothing to do with me. Oh, where's Atlantis? Oh, Atlantis is in a different castle, Mario, go and find her.
Yep.
That's how thin this feels right now.
Yeah, I'm feeling like Dagon's not the threat that we feel that it is.
Yeah.
I feel like it's setting us up that Arthur's being played. And I don't like that. I don't like sniffing that coming up. I mean, just the stuff with Laurie being like, I'm being forced to. Forced by who?
Yes.
You know, forced by what? Like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
I
don't think I trust these two characters that are helping him either. I feel like they could easily just be villains after another issue or two.
Well, in certain versions of Aquaman, Arion is the reason that Atlantis sinks. That Atlantis was up a part of the surface world, you know? So maybe he's trying to restore Atlantis himself. I don't know. But yeah, I do not trust them. Although, why would they give him a magical sword and whatever? Again, that's Excalibur. All those other stuff. I definitely feel like there's a twist coming.
Because it's part of their whole like dark prophecy. They have to have him become the new evil leader of this. And then Aquaman's going to have to like sort of like defy it and fight against it when it seems like he's trapped in it or something. I don't know. Like, none of it excites me though. Like all these things we're talking about actively do not excite me.
As somebody gets to meet Dagon, Dagon's just like this big fish-looking dude that's just all happy. He's like, "Oh my God, Arthur, I've been waiting for you. What's up, my guy?"
No, to be fair, I think we did see him briefly. I think we saw him briefly in one scene. Yeah, I think so. I don't think he was a big fish, dude.
Okay, well, either way. Also, this book had a kaiju at one point, right? That attacked the city at the beginning?
Yeah, that was like sort of the what Aquaman's up to before the story starts back in issue 1.
That's right.
Okay. Yeah, that was actually kind of fun.
I said, yeah, I was like, okay, fish dude, maybe, I don't know. And I was trying to think about when we saw Dagon, and I was like, well, it wasn't the big kaiju. Oh yeah, we had a big kaiju. So yeah, man, this is just not adding up. The math is not mathing.
Dear. All right, what are you giving Aquaman?
6.5.
5.5.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it's getting from me. It's I find it thoroughly mediocre right now. It's a shame because Adams is killing it on Green Lantern, but hey. Batman Dark Patterns issue 5. Dan Waters writing with Hayden Sherman on the art. So the apartment building is Scarface, and Batman is trapped inside with a bunch of people who are following Scarface's wishes. Quick flashback at the start showing how Scarface was defeated last time, and then Gordon's complaining that Wesker got like let out of Arkham because he convinced everyone that the Scarface persona was destroyed when the dummy was destroyed. So yeah, Arkham psychiatric reports are as good as toilet paper. Was the line that caught me there.
That gave me a great chuckle because where's the lie?
Yeah,
like Arkham in this sense, Arkham has not helped almost anybody. Right? There's not one success story to really, and in fact, it pulled one of their doctors into a life of villainy. So yeah, I love Gordon's comment there.
Yep. So Batman's dodging gunfire from all the drones. He ends up in an apartment with a little girl whose mum's kind of sick and comes out with a walking stick, and is happy to like talk to Batman about what's been going on. And this voice has been coming through the vents in the building for quite some time, and kind of convincing a lot of the people here that like the voice can be trusted, that it'll save them, that it'll save the building. And Batman starts theorizing about how it's what did he call it? Acousmatic sound, which is basically the idea that if you hear a voice but there's no person or like an obvious source, then we naturally kind of like take it as like a very serious thing that we should trust, because it's like, oh, it's the voice of God, it's the voice of something important, it's a prophecy of some kind. And he starts talking about how this affected the ancient Greeks, and then this woman's just like, why are we talking about Greeks? What's happening right now?
He's like, well, it's that Pythagoras lectured on philosophy from behind a veil. And the little girl's like the Wizard of Oz. And then we get Batman drinking what looks like lemonade, going, yes, like the Wizard of Oz. And I just thought, everything's bathed in green, right? There's this little girl there. Batman's drinking it just, it was just a fun little whimsical kind of thing here.
No, I mean, I like it because she's right. Yeah, it's just like the Wizard of Oz. It's this idea that you think the voice is from someone powerful because you can't see who it is, and she's like the Wizard of Oz. I'm like, yeah, exactly. The man behind the curtain. It's exactly that.
And isn't that Batman's entire vibe? As the presentation? At least in Batman Begins with the whole swear to me kind of vibe. You know what I mean?
I mean, they can still see Batman, but yeah.
Yeah. But you know what I mean? Like, or when he goes in Dark Knight and he questions the Joker. Right, the Joker's not taking any of it, and he's standing behind him and whatever. So it's just one of the things that Batman understands here, and how now it's been affected. This whole building has been affected by it.
Yeah, I mean, I think Batman does use it certainly, but I don't know if those examples specifically are. But it's more like when Batman turns off the lights and just sort of starts saying stuff to people, like it's spookier because you don't know where he's coming from. So the book kind of goes back to that sort of main like guy in the building who was like getting he was the one that had the dummy for a bit, and he got like hit with a batarang when Batman escaped.
Yeah, Rickson.
Yeah, he seems like the one who's kind of like leading everyone and like barking orders, getting mad at his wife and telling her to do stuff. Just important to mention him because it's going to be a big thing with him later on.
Yeah. Well, and everyone's still wearing the Scarface mask, which I still think is one of the best touches in this story.
Yeah, so
like this cult to him.
Yeah, the woman who's talking to Batman kind of starts talking about how like, oh, like, you should probably get out of here because they're going to keep looking. They're searching all the apartments, and they are. So Batman
Mhm.
jumps out the window and dangles down for a bit. But when the police searchlights look at him, then all these people in the building can see him, so they start like shooting at him and throwing stuff at him. There's an iron at one point comes flying down towards his face. So he
Mhm.
swings around, gets into the building, and he's basically been speaking to Gordon over the comms, saying, "Hey, I have to find Wesker. He's in here somewhere. He's probably in the brain of the building, which would be the top floor. I'm going to need to get to 30." So we
Mhm.
get like a little sequence over several pages where he's fighting his way up the stairs, and he's like, "Okay, I'm on the ninth floor," and he like
Mhm.
drops some smoke or whatever, which it's a specific gas that actually stops the voice from coming through the vents. It sort of dampens it, so they
Mhm.
can't hear Scarface's voice anymore. And he's able to get up a few floors, beats up some more bad guys. But it's really fun because it's like he beats up a few guys, getting up the stairs, and he's like, okay, 10th floor. Then he goes up some more. He's like, okay, 11th floor. So it's like it really does feel like he's going up like a series of stages in a video game.
Yeah, well, I mean, we compare this to kind of the Raid and Dread, and this is where it feels the most like that as he's
Yes.
ascending the different levels.
Yeah, so he gets up to the top floor, which is the 12th floor, and he,
Mhm.
busts in. Wesker's there, and he's like, "Wesker, prison now." I love that as if Wesker will just go to prison on his own. Like, just go now. You've been told off by
Yeah.
Batman. Off you go.
Mhm.
But there's a twist. The twist is that Wesker's tongue has been cut out. He cannot be the one who's saying anything or voicing Scarface. Uh, and he's just sort of like, and he basically mumbles or says what he can, which is he tries to
Yeah.
indicate that Scarface did this to him. And he's like, but
Mhm.
this doesn't make sense that you did this to yourself. So who did it? And this is where Batman starts theorizing, oh, you found someone else who is susceptible and delusional as you are to pass the persona on to. So naturally, our brains all go to that asshole, Rickon, who is like the pure aggressive
Rickson.
guy, or
Yeah.
Rickson. There you go, and he's like, being at the asshole all issue. But the twist is that his wife, who's been very kind of sheepish and kind of like docile and like doing
Yeah,
what he says,
demure.
yeah,
Yeah.
which makes sense because that's actually what Wesker's like. Wesker was always this shy,
Yes.
nervous guy, so it actually makes sense that the person who he's passed
Mhm.
it on to is also a shy, nervous person. So basically, Scarface is talking to this Rickon and says, "Hey, you've outlived your use, right? You're done." And then says, "Don't be
Mhm.
squared, sweetheart. Do what we discussed." And Rickon's like, "What are you
Mhm.
talking about?" And you just see his wife pick up this butcher knife behind
Mhm.
him. So it's got a really good build to this, where you see that she is just completely murdered her husband, stabbing him in the back a bunch of times, and Scarface voice is like, "Good job, sweetheart," and that kind of thing. And then also tells her to kill the cop that they've got tied up because she just witnessed this murder.
Mhm.
But the final page, just to make it clear, the Scarface speech bubble is coming from this woman. Because up until that point,
Mhm.
there were just bubbles floating in the panels. There was no direction
Mhm.
given to them. It was just this ominous Scarface voice. But the final page, as she's walking towards the police officer with the knife in her hand, it's, we can't have no witnesses, Gege, coming from her
Uh-huh.
mouth. Which, by the way, people did comment on the last episode and explained
Yeah.
this G thing instead of B.
Uh-huh.
It's a ventriloquist thing because of the way ventriloquists talk to do the second voice. It's
Uh-huh.
hard to do certain sounds, and one of the sounds they struggle
Ah.
with is a B, and it sometimes comes out sounding like a G. So it's actually a very intended thing.
Oh, Dan Waters, you're brilliant.
Yeah,
I
very,
love it
very
because I
good.
don't think I've ever seen this in ventriloquist, right? Like I don't see the B for G or the G for B swap any other time. I can't remember reading a ventriloquist story.
Sure, yeah.
So good on Waters for doing that. Like that's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, so it wasn't even just like a stylistic touch. This was something based on
Yeah.
real, like, actual vocal,
Mhm.
like, skills. So, no, that's cool. I actually really liked this final few pages. I thought it built really nicely, like
Mhm.
revealing that she's
Yeah.
the new Scarface and that she's killing people. And
Yeah.
yeah, I really liked it. It felt like a
Well,
horror story
and it
almost
just
at the end.
well, yeah, and then I love Sherman's layouts, but anytime Sherman wants to ramp up that tension, you don't get the fancy kind of swooping ones, right? Like the reveal of Wesker's tongue being cut out, right? Everything's very straight, typical comic book page.
Yes.
And then when we get to the ramp up of the knife, everything's straight and stuff too. So that's, again, the stylistic choice that it's making here. It really makes the story not stand out, but it draws your attention there, like you said, and it ramps up the tension really well.
Yeah, it does this thing where there's a lot of curves in some of the pages, but then it's almost like on the page with the actual like dead body and like the final page, it's like, no, these are straight panels, so you know that there's no lies, there's no like manipulation here, it's just a straight truth. You know, whereas the page where Batman's trying to like theorize what's happening as he's talking to Wesker, it's all theory, so it's all these kind of like circular kind of like panels that are almost like a broken up iris around the sort of the outside of the page, like making up all these extra panels in this sort of circular pattern over top of the central one. It's good stuff. Yeah, no, I mean, we really liked the last issue of this. I think this continued it well. I really liked him finding like the one nice neighbor to like sort of talk to who wasn't like turned by Scarface, and the innocence of the little girl, and then all of the stuff with him actually having to fight his way up the floors, and then the reveal that, oh no, Scarface has found a new like host, if you will, but it's this wife character, and I think that reveal's done really well at the end. So I dug this a lot.
Well, yeah, and the fact that the neighbor that helps him is she can't get her medicine because of the blockade now.
Yes.
Right. So like the impact that Scarface is having too, it's, you know, it's not just these cult people that are putting on the masks and following, you know, Scarface's orders. It's the regular people that also live there. So it was a nice little, you know, kind of human interest spot to throw Batman into. But yeah, no, a lot of good stuff, man. This book is, I look forward to it every time it comes up on the list.
Yeah, it's hurting her rather than helping her having this blockade. As much as it technically stopping her building from getting taken down, it's also harming her in other ways. So there's no like clear cut, you know, Scarface is doing something right here. No, he's not. Like he's, I mean, aside from the fact that he kidnapped an innocent woman as well, which is also going on. So it's interesting. It's interesting to think about how this is technically not regular Scarface then. It's this other woman's interpretation of Scarface. Now, maybe you could leave some wiggle room there and like theorize, is it something that could just be passed on? Is it just real Scarface that's transitioned from one person to the next? Or is it, more realistically, no, she's been convinced of this and is kind of taking on the persona, and it's like her own little quirks might be thrown in there to what it is.
Like, so irony is she's doing the Scarface impression, right? Because she's been, you know, impressed on by Scarface. She's been chosen now in their own way, you know, because she wants also to be free, much in the way that Wesker wanted to, right? Because if Scarface is supposed to be like this id, everything that they want to act on, but they can't, so they do it through Scarface, this is her not being the demure housewife anymore. This is her taking control of it. Oh, and I really like that balance.
It seems like she's in like an abusive, or at least a toxic marriage, if nothing else. So like, this is her kind of, all that anger is coming out via Scarface. It makes sense. You know, the pieces are there for this all to click and make sense. So excited to see how this wraps up in the third part next time. But for now, Matt, what are you rating Batman Dark Patterns?
I'm going to give this an 8.5.
Yeah, I think I'm around there. I could even maybe stretch to the 9, but I think I'll stick to the 8.5. But that's mainly just because I think I liked the last issue a little bit more, because it was so exciting learning what the story was. But this was a very, very good second chapter. So yeah, there you go. Now that'll take us out of the final part of the show, where we pick our favorite stuff for the week, favorite panel / moment, favorite cover, favorite art, and of course top 5 books. So Matt, what is your panel / moment of the week?
Right. So Dark Patterns had some with the Scarface stuff. That was a lot of fun. And Batman and Robin, a lot of the Juni iconography through there. Like, I don't know if we talked about it, but there's a page where you see Batman doing the loopy kind of throw with the bat rope, right? That he fires off. And then, so it makes the swoopy with an arrow. And then when you turn the page and it's Damian talking about what he's learned from his dad, it's the same kind of loopy thing through there. I like that. But mine's definitely going to be from Green Lantern Corps when Horus wakes up, and we have this big hawk-headed space god made out of nth metal, and it ends up destroying the ship. That was super cool.
Cool. Yeah. What? I think for me.
I mean,
yeah. Want to go?
I was say, what is it going to be from Aquaman? I know you love that book.
Oh yeah, of course, it's Aquaman. Yeah, it's kind of really between stuff from Green Lantern Corps or Dark Patterns. Those are the two that really had moments that stuck out to me as being kind of above everything else. I think I got to go with Atrocitus saving Zilius. It was just a really cool moment because it made me like Atrocitus as a character a lot more. Made him a lot more interesting because he's not just a villain; he actually cares about the people that he's with. I think that was just such a good moment that I think I have to pick that. So,
it's a good one.
Cool. As for cover of the week, I as much as I would like to pick the cover that has Kyle in his glorious crab mask. I mean, it is Lucas Meyer, so it is a pretty decent cover. But
I was gonna say, why can't you?
Well, I'm not going to pick that because there is other ones. I will point out the Bill Sienkiewicz cover for Absolute Batman, which is kind of this like watercolor of Batman standing on a tower. But there's like a tail, like a tentacle, kind of like up there as well, which is kind of like I think might represent the stuff in the ice that might come out. I think that's just a really cool image. There's also kind of a cool Christian Ward Batman and Robin cover. That's neat. My pick, though, is going to be Martin Simmons' variant for Batman Dark Patterns, because it's a very sort of like haunting horror-esque cover of like Batman just being grabbed by a lot of hands. Very much like all the Scarface followers. It's very, Arkham Asylum-esque, kind of like, ethereal horror painting kind of art, and I really dig that. There's a lot of tone and vibe to it. So, what's your cover of the week?
All right, so you mentioned the Christian Ward Batman and Robin. I think that looks really cool. It's got Memento in the background with that kind of watercolor style that Ward has. Batman and Robin on the cover, on the front, in the foreground. That's real cool. There's an Absolute Batman by Charlie Adler that I also liked. That I'm trying to click on it, but it looks like it's done in a bunch of pieces. There's a lot of negative space with the white. And that looks really cool. But mine's going to be the Action Comics variant by, who's the artist here? By Danny Earls. And it's got Superman flying around Metropolis. You have the Daily Planet globe up at the top. But the motion that Superman makes is in an S around there. And it looks really cool. It's very kind of simplistic with this Art Deco Metropolis rising up into the clouds. So that's my pick.
All right. Art of the week.
All right. So this is a tougher one, right? Because in Batman and Robin, the art really is kind of the storyteller throughout, because you have the three different artists, right? And they're all doing their own thing. But then there's also Batman Dark Patterns in Hayden Sherman, and that's all handled. So it basically comes down to, I think, what told the story better for me. And we all know that I love Hayden Sherman at this point. But, Batman and Robin and that experiment that they do, and Juni Ba, and then the artist, I don't know the artist name that did the Thomas Wayne stuff, but, how that thematically tells the story throughout. That's going to be my pick.
Hugo Petrus was the artist that did that couple of pages.
There you go.
At least I'm assuming the regular stuff was Medonca, because I'm familiar with his work enough. I think for me, it's probably Dark Patterns. I think there's not as much competition this week for me in terms of like having like a tough choice, because some weeks you have like 3 9 out of 10 artists, and you're like, oh, this is really tough to pick. I don't feel that quite in the same way. I think Pasarin's great house style stuff. I do like the different styles in Batman and Robin, but I think because ultimately I wasn't as satisfied with that issue, I think I have to go with Sherman on Dark Patterns. All right, so top 5 books, Matt.
All right, number 1's gonna be Dark Patterns. 2 2 is going to be Green Lantern Corps, 3 Batman and Robin, 4 Absolute Batman, and 5 Action Comics.
Yeah, number 1 for me is Dark Patterns. Number 2 is Green Lantern Corps. 3 Absolute Batman. 4 Batman and Robin. 5 Action Comics. Yeah. There you go. That's what it is. Kind of a lower key week, but hey, it has to happen sometimes. I will tell you now what's coming next week from DC Comics. We have Detective Comics 1096, Nightwing 125, Absolute Flash issue 2, World's Finest 38, Wonder Woman issue 20, Titans 22, The New Gods issue 5, Zatanna issue 3, Catwoman 75, the Summer of Superman special issue 1. We have DC Cross Sonic the Hedgehog issue 2, Challenges of the Unknown issue 5, Bruce Wayne Family Adventures 160, and your typical reprints and facsimiles and et al. So yeah, obviously Summer of Superman special should hopefully feel like an exciting start to a new sort of, not era, but like, yeah, a new phase in Superman's. We'll get our first taste of Dan Slott on Superman. Yeah. So that's something.
We also Wonder Woman 20, Pete. Get excited. Batman's there.
Yeah, March is coming.
But also, yes. Just when you thought we were out of March, we're back in.
Yeah, just when we thought March was good and gone, March is still rearing his ugly head. Oh. Yeah. Anyway, that's what's coming next week, and we will see you for that. So, yes, look forward to the books. But that is the show, everyone. This is a sub 2 hour episode. My God, I love it. What a weird week. But yes, thank you very much for joining us, everyone. We do appreciate it. You can support all the content and keep the show coming over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. It helps out a bunch if you do, and of course you can support in other ways, for free by liking, subscribing, all that usual stuff. We haven't quite unlocked YouTube memberships on the YouTube channel for the comic stuff, but we will at some point. But any support of MailFuzz movies or MailFuzz TV also helps support the comic show. So yeah, go check it out. Check out the Discord. But that is us. So thank you very much for joining. We'll see you guys next time. Keep reading DC Comics, and remember to never get lost in the Speed Force.